Hey guys, this is Unit 1, 2.1, 2.3. What we're talking about is linear equations in one variable. And here we are. So equation just means it has an equal sign. And solution is just the answer, okay? So when we say, is 2 a solution of 16 minus p equals 14? What we're asking is, does p equal 2? Is 2 a solution of 16 minus p equals 14? Is p equal to 2? Okay. It's just going to be yes or no. One way to do it is to just substitute. Instead of p, we're going to put a 2. Okay. 16 minus 2 is 14. That's true, correct? So 2 is a solution of 16 minus p equals 14. You can also, different way to do it is 16 minus p equals 14. Move everything. Here's your p. Sorry, here is your p on the left side of the equal sign. The equal sign is like a big wall, okay? You have 16 and a negative p on one side, you've got 14 on the other side. If you get p alone, whatever is on the other side of the equal sign is going to be what p is, obviously. So you just want to move everything over. You can also move p over if you want because it's negative, to find your answer. So that's a positive 16. In order to solve for a variable, you want to do the opposite. So 16, if there's no sign in front of it, it's in a positive, right? Or it's being added to the negative p. The p, the minus sign goes with the p. Good? All right. So that's a positive 16. How do you cancel a positive 16? You just subtract or do the opposite of adding 16. So anything you do to one side of the equation, this is the wall, anything you do to one side, you have to do the other side. So since I'm taking 16 away so that that's not there, all I have on this side is a negative p. I also have to take away 16 from this side. 14 minus 16 is a negative 2, right? Because we did adding and subtracting of integers. Because they're different signs, negative and positive, we subtract them. 16 minus 14 is 2. The bigger integer is the 16, and the 16 is a negative, so it's going to be a negative 2. Now, here we said 2 is a solution. When I put 2 in, I get the correct answer, or it completes the whole equation. Here I got negative 2, right? But notice that you're not done because this is negative p. Negative p is not exactly the same value as positive p, okay? It's like saying that we have a negative 1 times your variable. It's not p, it's negative 1 times p, or it's negative p, okay? So you're multiplying by negative 1. In order to cancel the multiplication by negative 1, you want to divide by negative 1 on both sides. And we see that negative 1 divided by negative 1 becomes a positive, right? You can even check on your calculator. Negative 1 divided by negative 1 becomes positive 1. And then negative 2 divided by negative 1 becomes positive 2 because a negative divided by a negative is a positive, but dividing by 1 doesn't change the value of the number, except for the sign, okay? So here we get the same answer, that p equals 2. So there's 2 ways to do it. You can put 2 in and see, is that true? 16 minus 2 is 14. And on this side we have 14, so that's true. Or you can solve for p and say that yes, p equals 2 means 2 is a solution of 16 minus p equals 14. Either way, okay? Next example is it's negative 10. That's is, so it can't be s. Negative 10, a solution of 2 times the quantity x minus 4 equals negative 28. So again, you're welcome to just write up your equation. 2, open the parentheses. I'm going to leave the x blank because I know it's going to be a negative 10. So minus 4, close the parentheses, equals negative 28. Good. And then we said that x is negative 10. I always use parentheses when I'm inputting a value. Okay, it's just safer. You're less likely to make mistakes. So we have 2 times the quantity negative 10 minus 4 equals negative 28. Now you're just using order of operations to solve this because there are no more variables. Negative 10 minus 4, those are the same sign. So you add them and you get 14, but they were negative. So it's a negative 14. And when I multiply negative 14 by 2, do I get negative 28? Yes. So negative 28 equals negative 28. So that is true. Good. Or like we did with this side, you can say, much more complicated, 2 times x minus 4 equals negative 28, and then solve for x is what we call it. So x, the 4 is being subtracted from x, and 2 is being multiplied by all of that. When you're working backwards, when you're solving for a variable, you want to do things in reverse. So for PEMDAS, we would do parentheses first, right? Or grouping symbols first. Here you want to do the opposite because you're working backwards. You're working backwards to find out what this one is. So it's being multiplied by 2, the whole grouping symbol. So we're going to divide by 2. Anything you do to this side of the equal sign, you need to do to the other side. So we're going to take negative 28 and divide it by 2. That just cancels. Okay, that's what we wanted to do. So now we just have x minus 4. You can keep the parentheses or not because the parentheses were for the 2. Negative 28 divided by 2, I think we know that's negative 14, right? Negative 28 divided by 2 is negative 14. X minus 4 equals negative 14. Now, 4 is being subtracted from x. What is the opposite of that? It's adding 4. Anything you do to this side, do to the other side. That cancels. Now I just have x on this side. Keep the equal sign. Negative 14 plus 4 is negative 10. So that's another way to find the answer. You can plug it in, make sure that both sides equal the same amount, or you can solve for the variable, okay? So for solving equations, the general goal is to isolate the variable or get the variable alone. When you're done, you should have your variable on one side and then a number on the other side. So if there's any simplifying on the left or the right side of the equal sign, do that first. Remember, the equal sign is a wall. So you're doing different things if you have to simplify one side as opposed to moving things across the wall, okay? Those are two different types of steps. So if there are variables, if there's an x on this side and an x on this side, if there are variables on both sides, make a decision on which side you want the variable. Doesn't matter, whichever side looks easiest to move them over to. I like to make sure the variable is positive as possible. So here you could have moved the p because then it would have been a positive p and you wouldn't have had to do this step. So you can move the p over here, move the 14 over here. 16 minus p equals 14. So what we did was we moved the 16. You can also move the 14. So subtract 14. We get 2 minus p equals, there's nothing on this side. You're going to put a 0, okay? Because it's not a fraction where we need to hold the space. It's just 14 minus 14 is 0. That's a negative p. So I want to move the p. The p is being subtracted from the 2. So I'm just going to add the p, add the p. The p is now canceled from over here, and we have 2 equals p. Okay, oops, sorry. So that's the same answer as that. Now the variable's on the right side, which is unusual, but it's easier because it's not a negative. So there's one less step of like making mistakes with the negatives kind of step. All right, so doesn't matter which side of the variable you choose, then isolate or get the variable alone by moving terms across the equal sign, which is the wall. Use opposite operations. So if it's being subtracted, you want to add it. If it's being multiplied, you want to divide it. You're doing the opposite to cancel out what is happening to the variable. Good. Division is always the last step. So let's practice this. Here we have, they're not telling us, here they asked us, is 2 a solution? So you can just plug it in a little bit faster. Here we don't get a choice of like, is it 10? No, we just have to solve it. So a plus 4 equals 16. There's no simplifying on the left or the right. There are no variables on either side, and the a is positive. So I'm just going to go straight to isolate the variable by moving terms across the equal sign. opposite operations to move things, okay? So if you're staying on one side of the variable and just combining like terms, it's not the opposite, okay? But to move it across the equal sign, you're going to start doing the opposite. So 4 is being added to A, you're going to subtract 4. Anything you do to one side of the equal sign, you must do to the other side of the equal sign. So now that is canceled. We just have A over here. 16 minus 4 is 12. Now to check your answer, you're welcome to put it back in. So 12 plus 4 equals 16. Make sure that that is true, okay? Y minus 7.8 equals 3.8. Same skills, just a different format because you have a decimal. Y is alone, Y is on the left. There's no simplifying to do. We just need to isolate it, meaning right now 7.8 is being subtracted from Y. We need to do the opposite. Add 7.8. Anything you do to this side, you must do to the other side. Better to line it up right below it. So that cancels. 3.8 plus 7.8. Do not worry about doing this by hand. Okay, use your calculator for the decimals. Use your calculator as much as you possibly can. It's not cheating. Okay, 11.6. Now you can put 11.6 in. 11.6 minus 7.8 is 3.8. Good. All right, next one, 3.3 plus y equals 11. Y is a positive. That 3.3 is also a positive because there's no negative in front of it. If there is no sign in front of it, it's positive. If it's negative, it'll have the negative sign in front of it. So 3.3 is being added. Let's subtract 3.3. Anything you do to the one side, you do to the other side. Those cancel and we get y equals 11 minus 3.3. 7.7. Again, feel free to check. Is 7.7 plus 3.3 equal to 11? Good. All right, here the variable is on the right. You're used to seeing the variable on the left, like in a math textbook, right? I wouldn't move the f over because the f is positive. It's much easier to have a positive variable. So instead of moving the f over, I'm just going to move the 30. There's no sign in front of the 30, so it's a positive. To do the opposite of adding 30, we need to subtract 30. That cancels. We just have f on this side. Negative 3 minus 30. Those are the same sign. So what we're doing is we're combining them, adding them together, and we get 33, but they were both negative, so it's a negative 33. Negative 33 is that 30 plus negative 33 equals negative 3. I agree. Okay. Same thing here. Subtract 11, subtract 11. 8.3 minus 11 is negative 2.7. Good. Don't be afraid of 0. Just keep doing all the rules you already know how to do, despite there being a 0 there, okay? We have negative 15 plus t equals 0, same as t minus 15 equals 0, okay? It's just a different way to write it, different order to put it in. We want to add 15. If we added 15 on this side, we need to add 15 on the other side. T equals 0 and 15 is just 15. Negative 15 plus 15 equals 0, yes. Good. All right, so those were addition and subtraction. Now we're going to get to multiplication and division, okay? Division is a little harder than multiplication. So 9x equals negative 45. X is being multiplied by 9, so we just divide it by 9. X equals negative 5, right? Because 9 divided by 9 leaves us with 1x, and then negative 45 divided by 9 leaves us with negative 5. X is negative 5. Here, z is being multiplied by negative 7. Make sure you divide by negative 7, not just 7, okay? That's not a subtraction, that's a negative. Negative 7 times z, so we're going to divide by negative 7. Z equals negative 9, okay? Here, negative 17x equals negative 17. Divide by negative 17. X is 1 because negative 17 divided by negative 17 is 1. If you're not sure, use your calculator. Your calculator will tell you what sign, negative or positive, to use, okay? Division looks much scarier. It's not. N over 3 is the same as n divided by 3 equals 9, okay? It's being divided by 3. What is the opposite of being divided by 3? We're going to multiply by 3. Times 3. Anything I do to that side, I need to do to this side. So times 3. 3 divided by 3 is 1. So we just have n. And then 9 times 3 is 27. N is 27. 27 divided by 3 is going to be equal to 9. So I know that's true. Negative 11y equals 0. Y is being multiplied by negative 11. So we're going to divide by negative 11. 0 divided by negative 11. Oops. 0 divided by negative 11 is 0. Y equals 0. The only number you can multiply negative 11 by to get 0 is 0. This one's more like 13. So x is being divided by negative 5. What's the opposite of being divided by negative 5? Multiplying by negative 5. So negative 5 is going to be multiplied by x divided by negative 5. And then negative 5 is going to be multiplied by negative 5. That leaves us with x on one side. 5 times 5 is 25. Negative times a negative is a positive. So you can check. Positive 25 divided by negative 5 gives me negative 5. Good. Here we have m being multiplied by negative 9.9, divided by negative 9.9 on both sides. 59.4 divided by negative 9.9, don't forget the negative sign, negative 6. M is negative 6. Feel free to check your answers, okay? 3x minus 8 is 16. First step, addition and subtraction always, okay? Don't divide by 3 because then you'd have to divide the 8 by 3 too. That does not sound like the easiest way to do it. Instead, I'm going to add 8 to both sides. I'm left with 3x because that cancels. And then 16 plus 8, 24. Divide by 3. X is 8. You can put it back in here. 3 times 8 is 24, minus 8 is 16. It's true, okay? R plus 2 equals 65. Subtract 2, subtract 2. R equals 63. 63 plus 2 is 65. Yes, good. 86 equals 9x plus 5. Again, the x is on the right, but it doesn't matter because the x is positive. So I would leave it on the right. You don't have to though. Subtract 5, subtract 5. 6 minus 5 is just 1. So 86 minus 5 is 81 equals 9x. Second step, x is being multiplied by 9. So we're going to divide it by 9. 81 divided by 9 is just 9. 9 times 9 is 81 plus 5 is 86. Yes. Okay. Here, start with addition and subtraction. So we're going to add 6 to cancel. Don't forget that that's a negative 5x, okay? Like I did. 24 plus 6 is 30. 30 equals negative 5x. Next step is divide by, not just 5, but negative 5. 30 divided by negative 5 is negative 6. Negative 6 times negative 5 will give me a positive 30 minus 6 is 24. All right, remember when our second step said combine like terms on the left or the right? So we can't combine like terms across the wall, right? We have to do the opposite to combine them. Here, though, they're on the same side. So we have 6x minus 14x. We can do that first. 6 minus 14, that's a positive and a negative, so we're going to subtract. 14 minus 6 is 8. But the 14 was negative, so we're going to say it's negative 8x. And then here, negative 5 and negative 19 are both negative, so we can add them together. We get 24, but they were negative, so it's a negative 24. Now you can do your one step. X is being multiplied by negative 8, so we're going to divide it by negative 8. X equals 3. Good? Okay. Here, though, the x's were on one side. Now the x's are on different sides. So we have an x on the left and an x on the right. I would move the 3x because it will still be a positive x. This x is bigger, they're both positive. If I move the 8 by doing the opposite, it's going to be a negative 5x. I don't want a negative 5x, I want a positive 5x. So I'm going to move the 3 over to the 8. It doesn't matter as much whether your answer is negative, but remember our very first example, when the variable is negative, you have to do that extra step of multiplying by -1 or dividing by -1. Okay, so I'm going to move the 3x. The way I move the 3x is the way I moved that 6, right? It was a -6, so I'm going to add 6 to both sides to move it to the other side of the equal sign. That's a positive 3x. I'm going to subtract 3x to move it over here. Now it doesn't exist over here. We just have a 5. And we have 8x minus 3x is 5x minus 10. Good. Now you need to move the 10 because I want the x alone, right? So I'm going to add 10, add 10. And you are also welcome to do this in the other order. You can move the 10 first, you can move the 5 first, you can move the 8 if you want. I chose to move the 3x first. It's not matter which one you move over first. 5x, the 10 is gone, equals 5 and 10 is 15. Now it's just a single step, divide by 5 on both sides. X is 3. Good. Couple more like that. I guess just one more like that. 8x plus 9 equals 5x plus 24. Again, I look at my x's. That's a 5 and that's an 8. I would rather move the 5. They're both positive. I'd rather move the 5. 8x minus 5x is a positive 3x plus 9 equals 24. Subtract 9. Subtract 9. 3x equals 15. One step remaining. We're just going to divide by 3. Anything I do to the left side, I should do to the right side. X is 5. Also, you're welcome to plug it back in. 8 times 5 plus 9 equals 5 times 5 plus 24. 8 times 5 is 40 plus 9. 5 times 5 is 25 plus 24. So that's 49 equals 49. That's how you know you have the right answer. Okay. Now, this one looks similar, but it has a parentheses on the left. That parenthesis means we need to distribute the 8, okay? Distribute the 8 to the quantity y plus 2. 8 times y is 8y. 8 times 2 is 16. Good? Okay. Now, this is an 8y, this is a 10y. They're both positive. So I'm going to subtract the 8 so that the y remains positive. Those are gone now. We have a 16 equals 2y plus 16. Good. Now, I want the y alone, so I'm going to subtract 16. Don't worry. Does not matter. So this is 16 minus 16. That's just 0 equals 2y. Nothing to worry about. Keep doing the same steps. Divide by 2, despite it being y. 0 divided by, oops, I'm sorry, you couldn't see that. 0 divided by 2 is still 0. Okay, so y equals 0. You can plug it back in. 0 plus 2 is 2. 2 times 8 is 16. 0 times 10 is 0, plus 16 is 16. Sorry. Yes, okay. Last one, 7x plus 8 equals 8 times the quantity x minus 6. First thing I'm going to do, there's nothing to combine on this side. I'm going to distribute on the other side. 7x plus 8 equals 8 times x is 8x. 8 times a negative 6. Don't forget the negative, it's a negative 48. Okay, look at your x's. Okay, positive 7 and positive 8. I want to keep it positive, so I'm going to subtract 7x. Subtract 7x. Now I just have 8 on this side. I have an X on this side, or a 1X, however you'd like to write it. And then a negative 48. I need to move the negative 48 now because I want the X alone. Add 48 to both sides. 8 plus 48 is 56. X is 56. And you can put it back in here and check that answer. All right. This is now solving equations, but with fractions, okay? So when you're doing equations with fractions, you want to clear the denominator by multiplying every term by the least common denominator. The least common denominator is the smallest number you can get that you can multiply all the denominators into, or you can divide it by all the denominators, okay? Least common denominator, or lowest common denominator. If that's confusing, feel free to Google it. Keep practicing it, whatever you need to do, okay? So we have 1x in number 27. We have 2/3 minus that x, and then the x is being divided by 4 equals 1/12. So you can subtract 2/3 from both sides, right? And then multiply everything by 4, but it looks a little bit difficult to take 1/12 and subtract 2/3. Instead, you can get rid of all the fractions because it's easier to work with numbers that are not fractions, right? We agree. If you like fractions, go ahead and subtract and then multiply by -4. It'll work the same. I like to get rid of the fractions. So the least common denominator of 3, 4, and 12 is 12, because if I was just to make a table, right? 3, 4, and 12, and I just took those numbers and I multiplied them by like the number 1, right? So this will be the number 1. 3 times 1 is 3, 4 times 1 is 4, 12 times 1 is 12. Then we're going to do the number 2. 3 times 2 is 6, 4 times 4 is, 4 times 2 is 8, 12 times 2 is 24. Then take the number 3. 3 times 3 is 9, 4 times 3 is 12, 12 times 3 is 36. Let me see, 12 times 3 is 36. All right, and then go to 4. When we're multiplying by 4, 3 times 4 is 12. 4 times 12 is, 4 times 4 is 16, and then 12 times 4 is 48. So what I've done is I've given you all of the multiples of 3. We have some of, not all of them, right? But the first 4 multiples of 3, the first 4 multiples of 4, and the first 4 multiples of 12. And what you're looking for is a multiple that is true to for 3, 4, and 12. So here I have 12, here I have 12, and here I have 12. That's how I find the least common denominator, okay? Or you can take the biggest number and say, can I divide it by 4? Yeah. Can I divide it by 3? Yeah, right? Or you can multiply them all together. 3 times 4 is 12, right? And then 12 times 12 is 144. So one of the multiples is 144, but it's not the smallest one, okay? If I multiplied everything by 144, I would then have to go back and simplify my fraction a lot because that number is way bigger than 12. So you want to find a number that you can divide 12 by, you can divide 4 by, and you can divide 3 by, okay? Once you find that least common denominator, you want to make 3 equal 12. How do I make 3 equal 12? I multiply it by 4, right? I don't multiply it by 12, I multiply it by 4. Anything I do to the bottom of the fraction, I have to do the top of the fraction to keep it equivalent, okay? Then we have a minus sign, and then we have x divided by 4. I want 4 to become 12. What do I need to multiply it by? I need to multiply it by 3, because 4 times 3 is 12. Anything I do to the bottom, I have to do to the top. And then we have equals 1/12. I want 12 to equal 12. It already does, so you don't have to multiply it by anything, okay? So 4 times 2 is 8. 4 times 3 is 12. I think I'm teaching you this wrong. And then that's 3x over 12 equals 1 over 12. Good? I'm teaching this wrong. You're supposed to multiply every term by the least common denominator. So I was supposed to multiply everything by 12. Anyway, we'll keep going like this. So now I can subtract 8/12 from 1/12 easily, right? Okay. Subtract 8/12. Subtract 8/12. Subtracting 8/12s, positive 8/12s cancels. And we have negative 3x over 12 equals 1. Oh, sorry. 1 minus 8 is 7/12. And then we're going to negative 3 times x divided by 12. It's being divided by 12. So we're going to multiply by 12. Multiply by 12, right? That cancels there. And that cancels there. Negative 3x equals 7. Make sense? So we got it, common denominator. We moved this over and we got 7/12 equals negative 3x over 12. Negative 3x equals 7 divided by negative 3 divided by negative 3. X equals negative 7/3. Good. All right. I'll do it differently next time. We don't need to turn it into a fraction over 12. We can multiply 2/3 times 12, x over 4 times 12, and 1/12 times 12. That will be better. So here our least common denominator is 90, right? There's no number between 10 and 90 that we can divide by 90 and by 10. So our least common denominator is 90. 90 divided by 9 is 10. 90 divided by 10 is 9. So I'm going to take x over 10. This is what we were supposed to do. Sorry. I'm not even good at fractions. So we found our least common denominator. We don't switch to the least common denominator. We multiply every term by the least common denominator. So we're going to come in and we're going to say this times 90. We're going to say this one times 90. We're going to be this one times 90. Put the plus sign too close. All right. Now it's a fraction, and the fraction is 90x, 90 times x divided by 10 equals 90 times x divided by 9 plus 90 over 10. Now we're going to simplify these, okay? 90 divided by 10, and you can do it in your calculator because that was the least common denominator, so we know it divides out. 90 divided by 10 is going to be 9x equals 90 divided by 9 is 10, right? Plus 90 divided by 10, we already know is 9, right? Okay, now it's gone. We're going to move the 10 over. You're also welcome to move the 9 over and then move that 9 over if you don't want to deal with a negative x. But I'll deal with a negative x just to show you an example. So we're solving for x. We're going to subtract 10. 9x minus 10x is a negative x equals 9. Now we need to divide by -1. Divide by -1. Negative divided by negative makes it positive. Positive divided by negative makes it negative. X equals -9. Okay. All right. That was number 28. 29, I'm going to do down here because I'm running out of space. So 29, we need the LCD. And then it's x over 3 minus x over 4 equals 9. What is the least common denominator of 3 and 4? It's 12. Okay, there's no number when we're looking at all of the numbers that 3 can, that is a multiple of all numbers that are multiples of 3 and all numbers that are multiples of 4. The first number that matches both columns is the 12. So So our least common denominator is 12. So we're going to take x over 3 minus x over 4 equals 9. And we're going to multiply all of those by 12 times 12 times 12 times 12. Okay. Now 12x over 3 12 times x over 3 just becomes 12x over 3. 12x over 4 becomes 12x. 12 times x over 4 becomes 12x over 4. And then 12 times 9 is 108. Okay, but now 12 divided by 3 is 4. 12 divided by 4 is 3. So that's how we got rid of it. You're also welcome to do that immediately. 12 divided by 3 is 4. 12 divided by 4 is 3. Okay, and that negative is just because it's been negative the whole time. Now combine 4x minus 3x is x equals 108. Okay, so that was the actual trick, not the fake trick I showed you before. 30, one more fraction, okay? 30, they're asking us 1/3 x plus 2 equals 1/6 x plus 4/3. And what is our least common denominator? Okay, so we have 3. If you want to turn that into a fraction, it would just be over 1, right? We don't need to worry about it. 3, 1, 6, and 3. If I was to make a table, 3, 6. 3 times 1 is 3. 6 times 1 is 6. 3 times 2 is 6. 6 times 2 is 12. So we found it, right? Our least common denominator is 6. We're going to take all of those, all 4 of those terms, and multiply them by 6. 1/3 x plus 2 equals 1/6 x plus 4/3. We're going to multiply all of them by the least common denominator, which we decided was 6. Okay. So that's going to be multiplied by 6. That's going to be multiplied by 6. That's going to be multiplied by 6. And that's going to be multiplied by 6. 6 divided by 3 is 2. So you can just call it 2x, or you can say it's 6x over 3. 6 times 2 is 12. 6 divided by 6 is 1, so you can just call it x, or you can say it's 6 times 1 is 6. And then 6 times 4 is 24. Or 6 divided by 3 is 2. 2 times 4 is 8. Okay, now let's simplify. 6 divided by 3 is 2. 6 divided by 6 is 1. Oh, sorry, plus. 24 divided by 3 is 8. Good. All right. Subtract 8. Subtract 8. 12 minus 8. 4. Uh-oh, I didn't move my x first. So now I have a positive 4, but I'm about to have a negative x. So well. Subtract 2x. Subtract 2x. And you're also welcome to move that x. It's okay. So we have 4 equals negative x, because x minus 2x is a negative 1x. Now we're going to divide by negative 1, divide by negative 1. 4 divided by negative 1 is a negative 4. Negative x divided by negative 1 gives me a positive x. So x is negative 4. Good. So that's what you do if you have fractions. Now we just have 3 more examples. Okay. All right, found some paper. Probably should have written it down before I started the video again. 31 is the example 7x minus the quantity 5x minus 1 equals 2. Okay, here, what they want you to practice is distributing the negative to both terms inside the fraction, or inside the parentheses, okay? 7x negative 1, you can also imagine it as a negative 1. Negative 1 times a positive 5x is a minus 5x. Keep going. Negative 1 times a negative 1 is a plus 1 equals 2. Okay, now we're just solving it. 7 minus 5 is 2. I have 7 x's. I take away 5 of the x's. I'm left with 2 of the x's. Plus 1 equals 2. Move that 1 by doing the opposite. It's being added, so I'm going to subtract it. 2x equals 1. Divide by 2. X is 1/2. Okay. Feel free to plug that back in to make sure it's the correct answer. 32 is 2 times the quantity y plus 6 equals 3 times the quantity y minus 8. Distribute the 2. 2 times y is 2y. 2 times 6 is positive 12. 3 times y is 3y. 3 times a negative 8 is going to be negative 24 or minus 24. Okay. Now again, look at your variables to make sure you can keep it positive. So to keep it positive, I'm going to move the 2y instead of moving the 3y. Now I have 12 equals y minus 24. I want y alone, so I'm going to add 24 to both sides. 24 and 12 is 36. So y is 36 for number 32. And our last one is y minus 6 minus the quantity y plus 2 equals 5y. So again, this needs to be distributed to the y and to the positive 2. So feel free to call it a -1 if you want. I'm going to get rid of these parentheses because they don't really do anything. Y minus 6. -1 times y is a negative y. -1 times 2 is a -2 equals 5y. Good. Now let's combine like terms. The y goes with the negative y. The -6 goes with the -2. Okay. Y minus y is 0y. So it cancels. Okay. Y minus y is 0y. I have a y. I take away a y. I have nothing. Okay. And then -6 minus 2. -6 minus 2, they're both negative, so I combine them. 6 minus 6 and 2 is 8, but they're both negative, so it's a -8. Now I have -8 equals 5y. I want to divide by 5 to get the y alone. -8/5 equals y. All right, guys, and that is all I have for today. Thank you so much.